Good morning.
Hi there. Is it a wonderful Wednesday to start off your day? We hope so.
I'm Frank Spillers, and welcome to Rural Community Solutions Live Stream TV.
And I'm Kim Spillers, and we help to design family-friendly, youth-centered places. So if that is something that is of interest to you, you're in exactly the right spot, and we're so grateful that you have joined us today.
It's family-friendly, youth-centered places that attract people that you want to have live within your community, that you want to have in your organization, that you want to have in your business. You know, if you don't exactly know the right type of person that you want to attract as an employee or as a volunteer or as a community member, if you don't know what exactly you want to attract, you're not creating the right atmosphere to attract it. So as soon as you can decide and define who you want to attract and what you want to attract, then you can create the environment that's going to attract it. And that's the principle behind designing family-friendly, youth-centered places, because the communities that we have all worked with have all said, we're tired of losing our youth. We're tired of them moving away. We're tired of not having families come back, and we want to change that. So our processes and procedures all have designed family-friendly, youth-centered places, and that's what we target.
So what we're talking about this week, our focal area is creating an entrepreneurial board. You can think of your church councils, you can think of your economic development organizations, you can think of any of your boards who serve like your Ys or your community centers. Lots of boards, lots of nonprofits. How to keep them functioning and active and engaged and excited. That's what we're talking about all week long here at Rural Community Solutions. So today we're going to talk about the importance of a board retreat and some of the components that you can consider when you're planning your next retreat.
Well, what's a retreat? I mean, I went online and I got the definitions and it's really a forced or strategic withdrawal. I mean, when we say we're going to retreat, that means we're going to
leave.
We're going to move away from the danger. We're going to move away from maybe defeat. We're moving away from an outcome that we don't want to see, and we need to come back and regroup. And that is, in a military sense of the word, that's what a retreat is. We're going to retreat to save our people. We're going to retreat to go back into protection, to maybe regroup, replan, so we can move forward again and see what, see if the situation, the environment has changed, right? So that's one. The other one is it's a place of refuge, seclusion, or privacy. And so that is the environment you want to set for your retreat, a place of seclusion. We often hear in the religious circles, I'm going on a religious retreat. I'm going to go to the mountaintop and see what I can see. And so it's a place where an individual will go to self-reflect. And so if we put these two definitions together for a nonprofit organization of what is a retreat and what is the purpose of a retreat, we can say a retreat is a withdrawal from what the day-to-day operation is. What are you doing? What are you advancing towards? And looking at what's in front of you, and then withdrawing back into the organization itself. And so even as an entrepreneur, even as your business, you want to make sure that you do annual retreats, because that is a withdrawal. And so if you have a board of directors with your business, you want to get them together and have that mastermind group on helping to plan for the future. And that is withdrawing from your day-to-day, going to a place of seclusion. That's going to be an important part. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Going to that place of seclusion to start focusing on our inner workings, our thought processes, our procedures, our vision of the future. And those are the components, and those are the purposes and the reasons why we want to be in a retreat. And so our retreat then is, how do we create that entrepreneurial board? How do we look at what that board is doing and creating that entrepreneurial board? Well, we look at these different types of functions for our entrepreneurial board. We look at the relationships that we are forming, and we're looking at engagement. Now, retreats are the foundation and the building blocks of creating great relationships. And we're going to talk about how retreats work for creating those relationships. It's also a place to where board members can safely, remember, retreats are a safe place, all right, can speak their mind and can speak their value system of why they sit on the board. Retreats also create that environment to where collaboration can take place. It's a place of coming together. It's a place of how do we unify our boards and how do we unify our organization so everybody understands the direction that we're going, and we come out of the retreat really with entrepreneurial wealth, but that's coming out of the retreat with a collaborative vision. That collaborative vision is a vision that is agreed upon, it's created, it's agreed upon by everybody. We're going to talk about the conditions of consensus at the end of this show, the conditions of consensus that is so important for a board of directors, an elected body, to move forward on. So really, that's how we're going to be talking about the retreat. We're going to be talking about the relationships, the engagement factor, the collaborative factor, how all those pillars build up your organization to create that environment for your organization to fulfill its purpose. What is your organization's purpose? And why do you have those boards of directors?
So what we could start off with is the importance of the setting. So while you're thinking about planning your next retreat, here are 5 tips that you might consider when you are planning where you might want to go, what you might want to talk about, and where you might want to hold this. So Frank mentioned one of them is the importance of your location. The best places that we have found for retreats to take place have rather a home-like, not even rather, they have a very home-like setting. You have a place where you have comfortable furniture, where you have like table lamps and floor lamps, someplace that feels like home. We have what used to be a retreat center here in our county, and we would have the most extraordinary retreats and just conversations that took place there because people could relax. They just really felt like they were at home. If you use someplace like a conference center, you still have, those are stiff chairs and tables and things like that. Those are barriers to having good conversation and for people to be able to feel like they can really let down. So we really encourage people that the setting be more home-like and have comfortable furniture and lighting.
So having a retreat in your boardroom where your board normally meets, that doesn't work.
Yeah, we'd really encourage you to think of someplace else. Tip number 2, as Frank also mentioned, is the timing of your retreat. We really encourage boards to think about setting an annual vision. You can have it more than a year. It can be beyond a year if you want to do a 2 or 3 year planning, but at least revisit that every year. We've talked in our previous episodes about how people do 5-year strategic plans. They check it off. Yep, got that done. Put it on a shelf. And then you come back and visit it several years or 5 years later when it's time to do it again, and you haven't gotten done what you had on the plan to start with. So by having an annual retreat, your board gets to be timely, and they get to be able to see whether or not the work that they've done, the time that they've put in, often as a volunteer, has mattered to the organization and to its mission.
So the timing of that is right now. Your timing is in the 4th quarter here for your organization. Specifically, if your new budget starts in January, you need to have your plan in place and ready to go by January.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Tip number 3, have food. we always have food. Make sure that wherever you are, you can either prepare it yourself, have it catered in, bake it while you're there, because then people just get really super tantalized. Here in Iowa, we have an Iowa native son whose name was Henry Wallace. Perhaps you have heard of Pioneer Seed. He helped found that company many, many years ago, many decades ago. He was also a U.S. vice president. He was the Secretary of Agriculture, and he was the U.S. Secretary of Commerce. And what he did was, at the federal level, when he wasn't able to get people to agree, the Wallace farm is about 40 miles from us. And so he would bring people to his farm, his family's farm. He would have people come. They would sit down. They would have dinner together. They would talk about family and whether or not they like to fish or hunt or whatever. They'd build relationship. And when they were finished with the meal, then they would push their plates back. They would sit back in their chairs, and then they would talk policy. That's where they could build trust, and they could move along an issue because they had formed a relationship, a basis, so that they trusted one another and understood a little bit more about what the perspective of another one was and why they thought that pursuing this particular policy was a good idea. They could talk civilly and respectfully to one another. So have food. It's a good idea.
Because that's where they built the relationships, was around the meal, around the food. That was the core purpose of that, is to build the relationships around the food. Because when you know somebody, you are less apt to attack them on a policy level, or less apt to dislike them, disrespect them, because you have built that relationship. So you're going to be more respectful of them as you talk about your differences. You might not think alike, but you can talk civilly more about that when you have that relationship built.
Absolutely. Point number 4, be comfortable. Let people wear jeans or sweatpants or sweatshirts or whatever. Save the suits for the boardroom. But when you're off on retreat, what we're trying to foster is an air of what if. And if you're in a suit and a skirt and heels and whatever else is formal to you to conduct and appear appropriate in the business world, you're probably going to get stifled. So we really encourage people in their posture. If you're in a home-like setting and you've got a couch to curl up on, maybe a fireplace, have the appropriate sort of casual clothes. You can be business casual or more. Your board will know exactly what to do, but we sure encourage you to make sure that people are comfortable, because that's where they're going to also feel like they can trust the setting. The 5th thing that we would encourage is to relax. We go helter-skelter, full bore, 90 miles an hour all week long. 24 hours a day, pretty much. In a retreat setting, we want people to relax. We want people to let down a little bit. The goal is to get a vision for the year. You want to have an agenda that has enough stimulating, challenging points to it, that we're going to be purposeful and measurable, and that everybody can get together and wrap themselves around that vision for the year. And in order to do that, we really encourage people to relax. So again, it is go someplace that has a great location is number 1. Try to do an annual retreat. Your timing is number 2. Have food, number 3. Be comfortable is number 4, and relax is number 5. So those are some tips that we have found from really successful board retreats that we encourage we just encourage you to think about.
So the environment is really key here, because as we have always said in every show, it's the environment that you set that creates the creativity. And now, as you do this and you bring your board together, it is business. It's all business, because when you are in your retreat, what you are doing is focusing on how your organization can serve the public, or serve its members, or serve the world. Whatever its purpose is, that's what the retreat is to figure out how you are going to serve your purpose. So re-examining the purpose of the organization is extremely important. You will look at You will look at all your documents. Now, let me step back just a little bit also, because even before you go into the retreat, you have months of work that need to be done. That is, you need to collect your quantifiable data. You need to look at household income. You need to look at the 3 items of how are your people doing? How is your economy doing? And how is your place, or how is your community of place doing? Those 3 items you have to look at to get a foundation to where can we improve? Where are our opportunities to start building upon? Where are our themes that we can build upon? Not only is it quantifiable, but you have to get qualitative data. And so when we get qualitative data, we actually come into a community and we sit down one-on-one with individuals for a long time anyway, for an hour an individual, and we talk about their perception of place, economy, and the community. We talk about looking at the quantifiable data, but then we talk about what is their perception, because many times they don't meet like this. Right? And so they're going back and forth, and that perception does not reflect what your quantifiable data is. And so that's important to get the reflection and the perception of individuals, specifically your leadership, specifically those of leaders in your community, but also other people. I did on an interview that we had last week, when we were doing these interviews into a community, the leaders thought one thing, but then when we were interviewing and we were talking to like a barista, or we were talking to the waitress in the restaurant where we were eating, or we were talking to some of the youth that we were just finding walking around the street or in the school, their perception was way different than the leaders. And it was going like this. And what do we want to do? We want to build the foundation to where everybody is thinking the same lines, along the same lines, to build our community. And so if you are in an organization that is, working for youth, if you're not getting the perception of the youth, you're missing your foundation of what you should be doing. So that qualified data piece is really important for you to look at. And so having that pre-work done of the quantifiable data research and the quantitative data analysis is part of your board job to look at and to figure out prior to going into the retreat. So we suggest that you do that, the data collection, and then we do a theme analysis. We look at what are maybe 3 to 5 top themes that are coming out of all this data that we're looking at. And that's what you start to focus on during that retreat. So it really gives you a built-in agenda that's talking about the foundation of the areas that you want to start working in. So you really have that running start and create that. Now, based upon that, you have to figure out the why of your organization. Why are you an organization? Just like all your board members need to look around and they need to go internally and ask, why am I involved with this organization? Why do I want to help this organization? It's not how do I help this organization or when can I come? It is, why are we doing what we are doing? That why, it becomes your core mission. That becomes your core of what you do. And you need to reflect on that why every time that you get together, because then you can start building upon your vision. And the vision is a clear picture of the future you wish to create. Now, part of that, and we're going to go over this on Friday, but part of that is looking back. And what we do is look back about 25 years of that, because 25 years ago, you were creating the culture that you're living in right now. All right. And so we want to look at that culture, and then we're going to examine the culture that you're living in right now to say, what do we need to change so in 25 years we're not living in the same culture? Because if you're living in the same culture you created 25 years ago, you're not changing very fast. And so that's the analysis that you want to have. So you as a board member in the retreat have a responsibility to do this. You create and share a compelling vision. So when you come out of that retreat, you are creating and you're sharing that compelling vision. Compelling vision attracts funding. All right. And so when you have that compelling vision, people know why they want to get along. Then you fund the vision. You can't just create that vision and then expect the executive director to go off and say, okay, you go raise the money. As an executive director, when that happened for me, people would look at me and say, oh, you're just fundraising to pay your own salary. That really inhibits fundraising for that organization. It is up to you as a board member to do the fundraising yourself. Also, the whole board as a board needs to communicate the vision. It's to communicate the vision solidly. It's to communicate the vision with enthusiasm. It is to communicate that vision with passion to where people are attracted to your organization. Also, it's your responsibility to lead some of those committees. Now, committee work is the foundation of nonprofit work. That's where all the work gets done, is through committees. And it's up to you as a board member to lead it. Now, you can have other people be chair of that committee. You can have other people, call the meetings and whatever, but you are the leader that reports back to the board about the progress of that committee. You need, as a board member, to listen to the membership. If you're a membership organization, you as a board member need to listen to the members. You can't just sit in your office on a daily basis and do your work normal. Okay, so I'm not going to pick on any occupation, but do your daily work and then you go, oh, it's Wednesday at noon, the third Wednesday of noon, it's time for my board meeting. I'm going for the nonprofit. So I'm just going to go to the board meeting. Here's my board packet. Oh, I haven't even opened it before I get to the board meeting. All right, so you don't know what's coming up at the board meeting. You're not even prepared for it. You have to listen. You have to be a part of that. You have to participate. There is work involved in being a board member. And you as a board member also have to make sure that the right policies are in place to achieve the vision. You can't craft a vision and then not have the mechanisms to achieve that vision. You can't craft a vision and then not have the right personnel in the place to craft that vision. All right. And so you need all those working functions in place, because there's nothing more demoralizing to an organization to craft this exciting vision, come out of it, and then nothing happens. No, just business as usual. We're going back to how we were with this organization. All right. And so as that board comes out, I'm going to talk about 3 conditions of consensus as a board member. Now, remember, as a board member, if you're an executive director, ask yourself this. When you go to interview a board, and we're going to be talking to an executive director tomorrow. I mean, it's a great time to come back and listen to an executive director of how does she interview board members? How does she pick her right board members to be a part of that community? Right? And so as a director or as a volunteer, you're another board member looking at filling a board spot because you're out there making the board better. Ask yourself this: are you interested in becoming a board member, or are you committed in becoming a board member? And if you're interviewing at that board member, ask the new board member, are you interested in becoming a board member, or are you committed to becoming a board? Because here's the difference. If you are interested in being a board member, you're just going to do what's ever convenient. You're going to show up for the meetings if it's convenient for your schedule. You're going to do the work if it's convenient and fits into your time frame. And you're just going to promote the organization if it's convenient and it just comes up in conversation. You're interested in serving on that. You have other ulterior motives for serving. However, if you're committed to that board and that organization, you're going to do whatever it takes to achieve the vision and the mission and the why of that organization, because it fits. So when you come out of your board meeting, or when you come out of the retreat, you have to ask all the board members this as you're walking through. Okay, here we just spent 2 days, and we do say 2 days. We say multiple days off-site to have your retreat. And we say this, we say, okay, as you're coming out of this meeting, do you understand the question or issue at hand? In other words, do you understand all the questions and all the issues that we have talked about here? Do you all understand them completely? And if the answer to that is yes, then the second condition of consensus is, are you willing to live with the decision even though it's not your favorite option? Will you walk out of this door, and even though it's not your favorite option, will you live with the decision of the board? Okay? That's an important point. In your head, you've got to say, okay, even though it's not what I would choose, and I talked against it, and I gave all the reasons why, the rest of the board said, yes, this is the direction that we're going. Can you support that? And then the third and final one is, are you willing to walk out of the room and pledge to support the decision both publicly and privately? That's so important, because many times, specifically, if you are in a chamber of commerce, if you are on an elected board of directors, if you're on a school board, if you're on a city council, if you're on a county supervisor, any elected board or appointed political, not quasi-political board, many times what we run into is that the decision will be made. Let's take, for an example, the school board. We'll have the school board meeting on a Monday night, and they will make a decision and move forward. Then the next morning, a school board member will go to coffee, and they will sit down with their little coffee people, and they will say, you know what those idiots did last night? You know what they agreed to? And it's always they did it, and you're a member of the board. And then they start trashing the thing that the board did. That's not a condition. That's not consensus. That's not support. If you are going to be a board member, you need to support publicly and privately board decisions. You need to support that. You need to let go any animosity that you might have had. I mean, argue it out in a board meeting, argue it out behind closed doors, argue it out however you want to do that. But one, on the foundation that you need to is to support that board decision. So that's the board retreat. And that is, how do you create that vision? How do you get direction for the year? Because that is the main duty of a board member, is to help with the direction of the organization. You need to be involved. You need to be interested. You need to be a committed member on that board of directors. And tomorrow we're going to be talking to an executive director of an economic development organization in South Central rural Nebraska, of what she talks about and how she creates her perfect board member. And what does she look for as a board? And so
come back tomorrow at 11:30 Central Time for Rural Community Solutions live stream, and you'll get to meet Carly Bruning, who is the executive director of the Thayer County Economic Development Alliance. And we are so grateful that she is going to be with us on our show. If you can't catch that live, then you can go to our YouTube channel, Rural Community Solutions live stream, or you can catch us on Spotify and Amazon and Google, and you go to Anchor. How's that address?
Anchor.fm/Frank Spillers.
Yeah,
that's our podcast.
Yes.
And so what we do is we download these episodes every day, and it turns it into a podcast. So if you're driving along and you don't want to watch us on video, which I can understand that,
probably a good idea. We appreciate you listening.
You can listen to it on a podcast, or you can just, as you're out shoveling snow, let's go back to as you're out mowing the lawn again. All right. You can put the plugs in your ears and mow on there and catch, if it Depends upon how long it takes you to mow, but you might be able to catch a couple of podcasts.
Maybe
But
at the gym.
anchor.com FM, or we're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on Google Cast, and a couple others. So you can catch those as a podcast. But otherwise, come back here tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Central Daylight Time off of our YouTube channel at Rural Community Solutions TV, or go to our Facebook page at Rural Community Solutions, and you can catch our live stream anytime. You can even catch the rebroadcast. So we are so glad that you're here. Give us a shout, if you will. I'm Frank at ghorizons.com, or
Kim at ghorizons.com. And we have been so grateful to have you as we talked about the importance of a board retreat for today, as we talk about boards and their health and their futures all week long here at Rural Community Solutions.
And we'd love to hear from you on what you think of boards of directors, or even give us your stories of how you have interacted with a board. Love to hear from you. Hit the subscribe button to catch every episode. If not, we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks so much for joining us. Have a wonderful Wednesday.
Bye-bye.